Good afternoon and welcome to the Westport Board of Health August 21st, 2023 meeting, which I'm calling to order under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F. This meeting is being recorded, and we'll move to the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go straight into the director's report. Any questions on that from that?
For me.
Okay, let's do the director approved plans and then we'll go on to any verbal updates.
Okay, so we have on the director approved plans, we have a 5-bedroom new construction home being built on a 100,820 square foot lot located at 5 Maple Lane for Chris and Mary Carter, using a quick floor and an Advantex AX20 D-Night system. That's the only director approved plan I have.
So that will require the 2 times per year total nitrogen and the usual D-Night stuff. This was a tear down, I think, is that right? I mean, according to the assessor's record, there's a house there now.
It's either a tear down or a substantially sized addition
Yeah.
that
All right, any
increased
other
inflow.
So,
questions?
never mind.
Okay.
Okay. No, I don't have any questions, so I move that we endorse the director approved plan at 5 Maple Lane with the usual denitrification testing, and that's it.
I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, Matt, any verbal updates you want to give us?
So last week was a busy week. Joe was on vacation, so we were just running around covering a bunch of things. But things went well. Nick has been busy, as you can see from his report, down in animal control, but he's keeping up, doing a good job. We seem to have a good coverage plan in place that we've had with utilizing he's not around, so far so good. We're still on the hunt for the part-time ACO, just waiting for some applications to come in, hopefully this week. Good.
Will you finish?
No. And transfer station, our new hire completed her first week. She's doing a great job, Lindsay, and things have been going well down here. It's been really busy down there in terms of sticker sales and punch cards. It's been quite busy for August. So I think we're having a good August. With that, and I'm just trying to think, Board of Health, seems to be a lot of building applications coming through, so we've been looking at those and sending out quite a few letters, and we've definitely had a fair amount of complaints coming through, so been pretty busy.
And we were talking before the meeting started that we're seeing, I'm hearing anecdotally, I just got a note from my doctor's office that they're seeing uptick in COVID cases. So just a reminder for people to, if you haven't been boosted, you can now, although there is a new version coming out in September. October.
Yeah.
And we are not planning any clinics, right?
Yeah. I won't say no.
Okay.
I've been in talks with the apothecary because in September, we have food clinics that we're going to be having.
Yep.
We're going to get together with the COA to do a food clinic. We'll have them here in the building. But also, I know that the RSV vaccine is available, you can get it, I think, with a prescription right now, but the standing orders haven't been completed, to my knowledge, so you still need a prescription to get it. And then you have this new COVID vaccine that's supposed to be out in September to deal with the specific new variant. So you'll have potentially 3 vaccines available in September for people who choose to get vaccinated, either for all 3 or one or the other. So yes, I think we may do some kind of combined pop-up clinic in the fall for all 3 of those, but just want to wait until there's standing orders. We have to wait until the standing orders become available so we can offer it in that capacity.
We have lots of practice, so. it should be
Yeah,
easy.
so, well, you know, it's been a little while, so back in the saddle.
Okay. And COVID tests, people can still get them, I mean,
Yeah, Linda has available COVID tests, the town nurse, and you can come in and get them. If she's not here, just come up to the Board of Health and we will get them to you. And we did order some more, just waiting to hear when they're gonna be in.
great, thank you. Any other, sorry. Any other questions for Matt?
Nope.
Okay, then let's move on to the minutes. August 7th, 2023, that should be. Any questions or edits on that?
I didn't have any questions or edits.
Neither did I.
Okay, so then I move that we approve the minutes for August 7th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
that's unanimous, thank you. Okay, moving right along. Under other business, we have to set a Labor Day week meeting. Obviously, that Monday is a holiday. That would be September 4th, I believe. So, and Phil, I know you had mentioned you would be away. Do we want to try and schedule for like Wednesday or?
Well, for me, because I'm going to be up in Maine, if I was going to come back, the later in the week, the
Okay.
better for me. But that,
Are
know.
you going to be in Maine the whole week? Because we could postpone a week? Or?
yes, it would promote family harmony. We can move it to the next week.
Oh, we're all about family harmony.
Ah.
Well, let's tentatively then move it to, what would that be? September 11th? Auspicious day.
That's Patriots Day.
That's the day all starts.
Ooh,
Might be a little
okay.
hectic for me that
All
day.
right.
And can I suggest that maybe we do that meeting in the morning? Whatever meeting we reschedule for Labor Day, can we, like if we do it on the 12th, can we do it in the morning?
Okay.
Unless there's objection by the board.
No, I mean, that's fine with me.
Can we-
I'm not sure how that, well, it'd probably be fine to do it anytime because the Concom meeting doesn't start until 7, but yeah, we could do it Tuesday morning.
Should we try, I mean, we've only, we haven't had a lot of director approved plans or appointments lately. So do you think we can skip the meeting?
I think we can. I mean, I can't tell you what's gonna happen in the next 7 to 10 days, but,
Dog
we
days
have
of
another
summer?
meeting actually. We have another, no, we don't have another meeting before that, so,
No.
I think, we'd be safe.
Okay, then we will cancel our Labor Day meeting, and our next regular scheduled meeting will be September 18th.
And then I think if something really important pops up, you can,
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
yeah. Yep.
Okay. Alrighty. Next agenda item is 88A Hillcrest Acres. The question that is coming to the board. They want to raise the house, build a new house on the same footprint on piers with no increase in flow. So no change to septic. However, that meets the definition very clearly of new construction, which says, Construction of a new building for which an occupancy permit is required or an increase in the actual or design flow, so or, not and. New construction shall include the purposeful demolition and replacement of an existing building. So I believe the question about D-Night is, yes, it would be required, unless they want to come in for a variance.
Yeah, I would point out it would even meet the definition of, I think, new construction under Title V,
Okay,
because it's not they're not restoring a damaged house.
right.
So,
Uh,
I think even under Title V, even if you voluntarily tear down a house to
Right.
do what they're doing, elevate it, I still think they would be,
Um,
I still think they'll have to meet all the Title V new construction standards.
Right. And because it's in very close proximity to the river, in a BE zone, it's a septic, at least the record that I had, but this shows 97. I mean, it's an aging septic system. I think for a whole host of reasons, they
So,
need to.
so this may be a little bit of semantics, but just looking at our regulations, which I think is built on Title V regulations, rather than saying no new construction, it says no newly constructed or increased flow septic system or composting toilet shall be located in the following areas, and then it goes through all the areas. So one could read that to say it's really the installation of a newly constructed system rather than one which, rather than because the building itself triggers new construction, I guess is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Because, so it might be, and I don't know, I haven't looked at this, so it might be they would say, well, this is new construction, your septic system has to be 100 feet from your well, and you have to meet other new construction criteria, and in this case, D-Night, but it doesn't, I think it could be read to, if we wanted to allow them to upgrade their system with a D-Night, add a D-Night component to it,
Right.
without necessarily considering it a newly constructed system.
Except for no soil absorption system for new construction shall be constructed or located within 100 feet of the, any waters of the Commonwealth. So do we know where the,
Oh, yeah, well, it's right there. I mean, I know the house very well, I know the people well.
because the leaching field looks like it's 55 feet away, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know the whole story, how the house got constructed where it's constructed.
Mm.
Only to say that one of the owners was the environmental attorney, assistant attorney general for the state of Massachusetts, and won the case in the Supreme Court that established carbon dioxide as a pollutant. So he's a very environmentally conscious person. So
The only thing I would ask is that we require a Title V inspection. There hasn't been one done since it was put in.
Okay.
And just to see, because if you look, here's a, if you want to
yeah, I
look
think
at
this
it.
was really a summer house until just recently.
So you can see where the house is and the proximity to the river. It's.
But it was rented. For them, it was a summer house.
Okay, so the question we were asked is, will this require D-Night? And the answer is yes. But there are, whoever they hire for an engineer also needs to look at the other, both Title V and our local septic system regulation requirements that may apply here. If they have to install a new septic system, is the Title V inspection advantageous?
Well, if they have to put it in, if the regs are read that they have to install a brand new system, then no. But if they're not gonna put in a new system and just add a component, then yes, I would say they definitely have to do a Title V inspection.
Okay, well, I read our regulations say new construction, they have to have the leach field 100 feet away, which they can't do. So they gotta, I mean, so we can certainly recommend a Title V inspection in any case, but I think they need to turn this over to an engineer for a full evaluation of what, and recommendation for how they proceed. But the question we were asked is, will D-night be required? And I think, unless I hear any objections, the answer is yes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I do too.
Where's it? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just think, as other cases have shown, just to say, is that the elevating, what would in this case be both the septic tank and the D-night system above the V zone, I don't think is engineeringly feasible. So then you need to reconcile, assuming they have a compliant Title V, assuming it passes inspection, how to,
How to deal with that. I
And
think that's the
how-
first place to start,
right,
is
and,
really
you
the
know,
Title V
and-
inspection.
and really all they're doing is elevating their house. How do we solve the problem within the confines of the regulations?
That's the job for the engineer.
Can the engineer make a brief comment that I think is germane to your discussion?
Sure.
If
This is
you
Mark
had-
Rodricks, for the record.
Thank you. If you were citing a new denitrification system for a raise and reconstruct, but you were struggling with the 100-foot setback to a well. So if you were to say this kicks in under new construction requirements, a consideration would be, what if I tried to fit in a much smaller footprinted bottomless sand filter
Mhm.
for said small lot? I don't know the lot, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if you also have the challenge of the 100-foot setback to the well,
Right.
Yes,
the
that is it.
engineer perspective would be, we can probably get a bottomless sand filter to maintain a 100-foot setback. However, bottomless sand filters are approved for remedial use.
Mhm.
So if you say this is considered new construction, I would argue as an engineer to say, no, if you've got a 2-bedroom house that's raised and reconstructed with a 2-bedroom house, the septic system could go under repair, and a bottomless sand filter could be a consideration.
Right. Under our regulation, it's for the purposes only of one provision of requiring D-night. So you're right, the Title V new construction definition would apply for.
But that's a clarification, because if you looked at new construction in Title V, which you said this qualifies as new construction in Title V, not if it was an increase in number, unless it was an increase in the number of bedrooms. Clearly, that would be the case. So with your regulations, there is that ambiguity that,
Yeah.
could be questioned. I just wanted to point that out. So
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. We're in the process of tweaking the regulations, so there may be an opportunity to clarify.
Because I think the BSFs are gonna be seen more and more on these smaller lots where people are raising on the waterfront, et cetera.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
there is kind of an ambiguity there that I wanted to point out to the board.
One of the existing wells is, they have 2 wells, but one of them is 100 feet from the SAS now. So.
Well, one's only 56.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why they need 2 wells, so.
Okay.
that's another-
All right. Well, we've answered
you.
the question that was asked. We, doing our usual deep dive, found a lot of other issues that whichever engineer they hire needs to look at as well. Okay, so that brings us, apropos, to item number 3, proposed local septic regulation revision. I have circulated a draft, just the sections. As we discussed at our prior meeting, we agreed for a whole host of reasons that it made sense to delay the deadline for cesspool replacements while we work to develop some more financial options for low and moderate income residents, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So the initial change to the reg,
That's the one that came in the package. No?
there it is.
Oh, yeah.
So the basic change is a very straightforward change to the section 9.0A3, change the February 1, 2026 to February 1, 2028. So that would mean the cesspools have to be replaced if it's in failure by the deadline in Title V, if sewer or cluster shared system is available, or the third, no later than February 1, 2028, the earliest of those dates. That's the straightforward, that's all we need to do to accomplish what we agreed to the last time. I am proposing a couple of other minor clarifications, and maybe there'll be more we want to consider. Under section 5, and this came out as a result of the other document we're going to talk about next about nitrogen reducing technologies.
I'm sorry, I was on the wrong page, so to speak.
So on page first, so did you get page? Section 9. This is not the whole reg. It's just only the pages that are being amended. So this is on the first page, page 5 of 11. It's section 5D. Any building uninhabited for 3 years or more requiring an upgrade to a septic system not approved under Title V shall be considered as new construction. I added the words under Title V so that we made it clear it wasn't the new construction definition that we used for our D-night requirement. So that's what I'm proposing for that, which is on the first page. Right there.
Okay.
Because you had pointed that out, I had suggested that this would trigger the D-night requirement, and it does not. It's not intended to.
Right.
So that's a very minor, clarifying change that I thought would be worthwhile putting in, because obviously I was led astray, and others might be. Any questions or concerns about that? So that's the first two. I had one more. Okay, and this would be section 16. This is on page 10 of 11. This is the fourth page in your packet. And this was, again, based on our discussion about when does 2 times per year total nitrogen testing requirement kick in. We had talked about when engineers often come forward with, or sometimes come forward with a D-night repair, upgrade, trying to use the right Title V language, because of conditions of the lot, proximity of wells, et cetera, et cetera. And we agreed that under those circumstances, it may not be necessary. It would be advisable, we'd recommend it, but again, trying to be cost sensitive, that we wouldn't make it a requirement. And so what I'm proposing here is that where it says, at a minimum, the Board of Health shall require semi-annual measurement of total nitrogen in the effluent of any nitrogen-reducing system, and then I added the words, installed per section 10 of this regulation, which is the new construction section. So again, not necessarily a voluntary upgrade or a remedial situation. So that's, again, a proposed clarification to be consistent with what we discussed a couple of meetings ago. Is that make sense? You okay with that?
Yeah, I don't remember what we were doing when we, in this regard, when we required D-Night systems under maximum feasible compliance.
That's when we were talking about it when we were looking at the document about nitrogen reducing technologies
Yes.
in Westport. And that's when we had that discussion. We've had somebody who was doing a voluntary
Right,
D-Night.
I mean, yeah, well, that's different. I mean, the voluntary is different. I mean, I'm fine with this. I just think that I think it's fine. I
Okay.
mean, it just may be a change in practice from what we were doing at the time when we were requiring, so it wasn't voluntary, we were requiring them under our policy that they install D-Night and.
We can still make it a condition
Yeah, okay.
under circumstances, but I don't want to make it a default
Yeah,
requirement.
yeah, that's
Um,
fine.
And then the last section is just changing the effective date. So I will make a note, the question Mr. Rodrick's raised about new construction under our definition, triggering a D-Night, whether they can use remedial use technologies, is sort of would that be fair?
That's well worded.
Okay. I do that so well, off the top of my head.
PSFs are remedial use approvals.
Right, so we'll come back to that, think about that. This is just a draft, we're trying to move the ball forward. We were proposing to do adopt the regulations sometime in September, so.
So are we open for discussion?
Sure.
Okay, so I was also thinking about, what to do about the cesspool closures and, kind of the problems that we were facing, particularly in looking at people who were constrained by their income to do it. And I can say something about the 0% loans, but I won't interrupt the flow of what I was going to say. And so, and I support the idea of extending the timeline, because I think that will give additional time, particularly for the sewer project, if it goes forward, we'll have more concrete ideas about that. But I think, and I don't mean this pejoratively in any way, but sometimes it's good to kick the can down the road, but then eventually you get to the can again of those people who are having this income issue. And there was a alternative in Title V for inspections and an exception to inspections, which I thought could be readily adopted to this situation where, and this is one of the exceptions to conducting to an exception. And it gives, and it says inspection of a system is not required at the time of transfer of title of the facility under the following circumstances. And one is that the owner of the facility acquiring title has signed an agreement with the approving authority to upgrade the system or to connect the facility to a sanitary, sewer, or shared system within 2 years following the transfer of title, provided that such agreement has been disclosed and is binding on the subsequent owners. And I thought the idea of, that it was worth thinking about, the idea of putting people under a legal obligation at the time of transfer to upgrade the system. Because really I think that the reason that, or one of the, what's the right word? One of the realities of the acceptance of requiring DNATE for new construction was that there was new money being brought to the table, so that it was relatively, it would just became another expense of building a new home. It wasn't someone who may or may not have a compliance system. And so this was a way of saying, well, when there's a transfer is happening, then the person would be under a legal obligation at that point, and we would know that in advance, and we could. So we could have people signing up now or going forward to say, I understand I'm legally obliged in the event of a transfer, we're going to upgrade the system regardless of whether it's failed or not failed.
Okay,
So
so
that
you're
was just,
proposing another mechanism, or another option,
right,
which is, instead of the February 2028 firm deadline, that they commit to upgrading at the time of property transfer. But that's
yes,
something we certainly can discuss. I think it's something we should put on the agenda for
yeah.
a more
Yeah. I mean, I
robust
don't think we
discussion.
have to, I think we can buy ourselves some time through this to do that. But, and I think one of our hopes was that within the first 5-year period that the marketplace would result in a lot of cesspools being upgraded at the time of sales. And I don't really know, but it doesn't, seems like we're overwhelmed in that way, that we're still a couple of hundred cesspools that are still out there that we know of that have not been converted. And it's hard to believe that all those will turn over in the next 2 years. So I think this is an option just to give, to think about the option of giving people an opportunity to commit to a legally binding commitment that may take them beyond 2028, but at the time of transfer, the conversion will happen.
Just
Okay.
a question on that.
Sure, quick question.
So there's no deadline to that though, right?
There's no that's right.
So that
There's
means
no
we-
deadline.
somebody, because some people, and because then you could fall into that exception of transfer and inspection. Would that apply? If you transfer into like next of kin or somebody
Right,
like
yeah,
that?
that's right, we'd have to think about that.
Yeah.
We'd have to think about those exceptions.
Okay.
But, I mean, we haven't, anyway, yeah. So it's just thinking about, I mean, just trying to think through it a little more and talk to people a little more about it and just see, whether or not, particularly for moderate and low income people, that it would give us some certainty that at some point in time that conversion would take place, rather than being in the position of having to decide, are we really going to take this person to court to enforce a date when they don't have the funds? And I think that's a very unenviable position for the board to be in.
Okay, well, I'm going to propose that we put that on the September 18th agenda for further discussion. If you want to develop some either proposed language
Yeah.
or some further research, that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
But we do have a hearing for
Yeah.
4:30, so I'm going to call that hearing. This is Mount Hope Engineering representing Denise Cosgrove for 219 W Tickle Road. This is a 3-bedroom repair with a BSF and Fuji Clean on an 8,712 square foot lot. Good afternoon.
For the record, Jim Soul, Mount Hope Engineering, representing Tickle Road. Before you today with a request for local upgrade. Property line, reduction for a property line to the soil absorption system from 10 to 5.1, reduction from the soil absorption system to the slab of a detached garage, 5.1. Reduction from the private well to the septic tank is from 100 to 50.2, and reduction from the setback from the private well to the soil absorption system from 100 to 60.8. 219W tickle, 81.4 on 219N tickle, and 90 feet on 219B tickle. We have sampled all those wells, the butters. They all came back, nitrogen's high, some were in violation. And I spoke with our client being the seller has
Came in today.
sent the buyer to us. I think that's important, obviously. So we were right at 10.0 parts per million on the initial nitrogen. And I advised them on what nitrogen is and what should be done. Obviously, treatment would be a logical step for them on their well water. But also, I know typically will ask, you got baby blue syndrome, you got a lot of things that you're interested in that, and we went over that with these people that are buying the house. So we also have the abutters, and I'm not so sure how the town of Westport's been dealing with the abutters on these higher levels. They obviously know the numbers, and we are obviously making it a much better situation. As far as the alternative technology we're using, we've been using FujiClean and Advantix and FujiClean, the two vendors we've been typically using. We have the studies mostly out of New York that have shown that FujiClean has come up with the best results relative to nitrogen. Okay, they were hovering around 10, and that's obviously way below the 19. So we've been spec'ing them. We also know that the FujiClean relative to these other products, there's less money on the installs, typically anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 less. So price point's important. Nitrogen performance is important. Ease of installation is important. And because of all those factors, this is why we've been using them. We have, just so the board knows, we have about 1,300 alternatives in the ground between Rhode Island and Massachusetts. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hall. I'm going to turn first to Matt for his report, and then we'll open up to the board for questions. And obviously, the abutters don't appear to be here, so.
I don't have anything to add, other than, the CEN 5 is a provisional system under Title 5, but kind of worked through that here with Mr. Hall, so
Okay.
we're all good.
So the, on the provisional, the homeowner's aware of the, obviously the approval and the requirements that go with provisional. It's a little bit more rigorous.
So Fuji comes out every month.
Okay.
Okay, every system in Massachusetts, they are out every month. The maintenance contractor, who's obviously twice a year obligated to go, is with him twice a year. They have to sample every month. BOD, TSS, total nitrogen, that's part of the system. So, quite frankly, DEP's making them jump through all these hoops. They have 2 million systems in the ground worldwide. So they're making them jump through these hoops, even though the Long Island data, which is way more extensive than Massachusetts, shows the numbers. Matt, if you have I could forward you the report. It's quite interesting. It's sort of the dilemma that Westport has, but obviously on a way wider scale on Long Island, basically from Riverhead to Montauk. It's a huge nitrogen issue out there, and they have lots of money they've thrown at, lots of studies, and that's why we got tipped off on Fuji and how we sort of came about starting to look hard at what the technologies they were using, because they were sort of ahead of the curve a little bit compared to Mass at the time. So performance is really good. As a matter of fact, they came out the best between Aramco, Singular, all the other products. There was about 8 of them. So Fuji had the best results, and that's how we ended up with that. As far as the buyer seller, in other towns we're trying to resolve that. When there's a P&S on a house, which is always the dilemma, the buyer wants to get rid of it, they have to sign a contract as they own it, and we're trying to make sure we snag the seller out of the buyer. I'm sorry,
The seller,
because
yeah. Okay.
because they don't own the house yet. but we still try to get them to sign that service contract. And if they don't buy the house, they back out, then it's not valid, obviously.
Right.
That's sort of a sticky issue with all this stuff is, we may never know the buyer, we only know the seller from an engineering standpoint. So I think that's something everyone's gonna get their arms around that.
Okay.
So other than that, they do know the provisional, the people buying it, we've gone over what the system does, how it works, and we're content with it. They're obviously right on with Tupper, so
Yeah.
it's gonna be seasonal only, actually. They're only buying it for seasonal only.
Okay. And one other thing, I noticed that you indicated reports to DEM. That would be the Rhode Island, obviously, instead of.
Correct.
So here in Massachusetts, we require the reports, O&M reports, to go to Barnstable County. They're our rep for.
Okay. So service reports, Matt, you take them too? Or you get the report too, and they in Barnstable also? Or-
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we
Yeah,
we put them in the file.
I look at it, but then put them in the file. But, yeah, so they go to me and then Barnstable County, and Barnstable County will monitor them. We fill out a summary sheet, they monitor it based on, what the system is, and if there's a problem or an exceedance, then they will reach out directly, and then if they have, get no response, then they'll notify us, and we'll step in.
So they do the legwork for us because we don't have the manpower, person power.
So make sure I don't have to disconnect. If you could email because I gotta get this to the service contractors, not myself. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not gonna be going out.
Right.
So.
Well, most of the O&M contractors, I don't know, Fuji, we've only had 1 or 2 installs.
Right.
They already, because they do on the Cape, they're already doing it for lots of others. So this is just, Westport is another town.
Mhm.
So they're pretty familiar, and they do it online. It doesn't have to be, it's not
Okay.
paper. So I'm guessing that if Fuji has installs anywhere else on the Cape, they're 100% aware.
As far as the Cape, I'm not sure. As you know, down the Cape, it's changing. It's changing quickly,
yeah.
as you guys probably know. But them
We do
coming
know.
in, they talk about 10 parts per total nitrogen. They're talking about less than that. So it's a
Whole
changing
different
world
ballgame.
down there.
Right.
I would only say, I just want to be clear with all the technologies that the lab results for less the nitrogen, not the BOD and TSS, which is the requirement typically. Does Westport have a requirement for total nitrogen to test? I checked the regs. We have to be at 30-30-19. So I'm not sure, because what's happening, I'll give you, for instance, on the remedial side, I don't believe any of the technologies have to test for nitrogen. On the provisional side, they do. So I'm unsure.
And on the general use side, they do. So if it's a general use for the technology, they have to test. If you're gonna use it as denitrification,
right?
then it requires the TKN, total nitrogen testing.
Okay,
On the remedial side, it doesn't.
right.
Technically, remedial use isn't approved for denitrification.
And you're not requiring on the remedial side for BOD or TSS testing, you're just requiring the inspection reports twice a year. Because that's lab results, and I don't see a lot of the guys doing them. A lot of the inspectors don't do the lab results on the remedial side of things. So,
We were just talking about clarifying that in our regulation, that the 2 times per year total nitrogen testing requirement applies to new construction, and we were saying remedial, we would encourage it because that's a good way to monitor the successful performance, but we're not necessarily going to require it. That's a clarification to the reg we're proposing because of the cost implications of having to.
Because this is a voluntary D9.
This one
It's
is
a voluntary D9.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the board is talking about relieving those required testing for voluntary D9s. But if it was a required denitrification system that had to be put in, we would want to know if it's functioning, so I think we would require the total nitrogen testing.
What about the fact that the nitrogen levels are so high?
Well, in this
So-
case, we might require it because the nitrate
Yeah.
well levels are, in the drinking water. I mean, so it would be a discretionary, but not a default. to require.
I actually had a kind of a question about that because I was noticing that so where's the pump chamber? Oh, okay, never mind. Okay, so you're pumping it all the way up there. Okay, never mind. What I was looking at is where the tank was, and I didn't realize you were pumping it all the way up to essentially the top of the. So it was so now the SAS is up gradient of the well, whereas the tank is down gradient of the well, and I just was.
We couldn't, the house actually has the plumbing under the slab of the low level that's not looking out to the topper, because
Yeah.
the logical choice here would have been to flip the plumbing going out the front of the house and not have a pump, but it's not feasible.
Right, yeah. I was just wondering, whether there were other sources of nitrogen, off-site sources of nitrogen that were influencing the results that you were getting. I mean, one of them is 18, which I think may be the highest I've seen.
That's the highest I've ever seen.
Yeah, and then there's coliform and
Yeah,
one.
maybe, but yeah.
Oh,
Well,
really?
the
And,
3 years of water testing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Like and I could point out too, I believe the neighbor with the high nitrogen has an alternative system in the ground already, and it wasn't done recently. So what's interesting about this, if you look at groundwater flow.
Right, that's right,
It's
yeah.
illogical on why these numbers on his are coming up, unless it's from old school 20 years ago, 30
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah.
Which is, so it's not like a cesspool, it's
18 also.
Right,
out there
right, yeah,
live
I
and
think
doing
that's-
damage. So I don't,
Yeah. No, it's a complicating factor for us to try to figure out whether the solution that we're proposing is really gonna solve the problem, that's coming off-site. And so there have been situations where we've just required people to, install treatment on their well.
yeah. And that's what we always do, make the folks aware that this is what you got and you should do, you
Yeah.
should take care of this.
Yeah,
Yeah, certainly, we will, well, they have the report, the one at 219N Tickle Road also has coliform in their well water, so not but we would, our regulation, we do require 3 years of well testing for all of the wells within 100 feet. So
Right.
they will at least have additional data for those other properties to consider their next course of action. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
No.
Anything from the audience? Seeing none, a motion would be in order.
I'm gonna defer to you on this because I haven't written this in.
Okay, I'll try. All right, I move that we approve the plan for 219 W Tickle Road for Denise Cosgrove dated 5/4/23 for a 3-bedroom repair with the following variances. Reduction in the setback from the property line to the SAS of 5.9 feet from 10 feet at 219N Tickle. A reduction in the setback from the private well to the septic tank from 100 feet to 50.2 feet for 217 W Tickle. A reduction in, 219.
219, yeah.
Yeah, a reduction in the setback from the private well to the SAS from 100 feet to 60.8 feet for 219 W, of 81.4 feet for 219 N, and the reduction of 90 feet for 219 V Tickle Road, with the following conditions: 3-bedroom deed restriction, a hold harmless agreement, an O&M agreement, hopefully from, well, are we going to be able to get an O&M agreement from the buyers? Total nitrogen testing for 2 years, twice a year. And water testing for 3 years for 219N, V, and W Tickle Road, and a Concom review. Did I miss anything?
Do that. Second?
What?
Did you get the reduction for the garage slab?
Ooh,
I didn't.
that was not in the cover letter.
It's on the plan.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
5.1.
And also the reduction in the setback from the soil absorption system to the garage slab foundation from 10 feet to 5.1 feet at 219 W Tickle.
Okay, any
Second.
motion made and seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
folks.
Hall.
Thanks for all the
If you wanna
information.
send that info, that'd be
What's
great.
it?
On the Long Island study.
Yeah, can
I'm
you,
sorry.
the decision email that we do?
Yeah. You'll get a letter and all that
All
stuff.
right, I'll send it over.
Deed restriction hold arms.
But you want to do it in time, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, good night. Where did the test, oh,
Yeah, they came in today.
yeah,
So
no, that's
they didn't have
okay.
time to get their
That
packets.
was one of my questions, it's like, where are the test results?
It's very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, moving rapidly forward to our next appointment with the discussion with Mark Rodericks for 875 State Road Septic System, which we discussed last time, and here we are again. But I think we have a proposed,
Yes.
are we calling it a consent order, correct?
Well, it is actually a draft decision. Oh, have you seen this one?
No,
Oh, okay, all right. So,
should I send it back?
Sure.
No, I don't think I got it.
Yeah, you gave it,
I
okay,
do
so-
not.
It was last.
so I wouldn't say a light bulb went off, but when I was going back through the regulations, I realized that our building renovation regulation trigger is a change of use in the, in the facility, and that that the regulation also required the department to issue a decision. So I framed what we are going to do as a written decision of the board in light of the change of use. And that kind of, because I think consent orders should really more appropriately deserve to, where there's a violation, and then as this, so Matt and Mr. Rodriguez and I met, and it kind of finally, dawned on me, which I tried to explain in the second paragraph, what exactly, how the numbers came about the way that they did. And essentially, what it is that all the operations at the facility are going to be, their design flow is going to be measured on the basis of what their approved design flow capacity was. And the two operations that are changing are going to be, are at the design capacity that would be required under Title V currently, because that's the things that are changing. That then led us to comparing the design capacity, this kind of hybrid design capacity of the historic approved design capacity and the new design capacity to and comparing that to the actual water readings led to this surplus in design capacity, such that it would more than accommodate the additional design capacity to the changed systems. And so what the changed uses. So the decision proposes a number of conditions, and the first A through G are the conditions that Mr. Rodrick's proposed in his request. And then the additional ones are the ones that Matt and I discussed and came out of the discussions that we had previously about this, which provides for the contingency that if the actual, post-conversion of use meter readings exceed 1,784 gallons, which is a 200-gallon safe margin of safety for a period of 2 months, that would then trigger a full redesign of the system unless we would approve otherwise.
Well, can I just clarify, there
Mhm.
is an approved plan for the redesign, so it doesn't need a new, are you proposing a new plan?
No, I'm not proposing a new plan. It says that the system upgrade will require to be installed.
Okay.
It's an installation. It says if at any time the meter reading exceeds the safety margin, a full system upgrade will be required to be installed with design capacity to serve the then existing facility uses. And part of this is, we can't only think of this in terms of these two systems at this point in time, because it's a commercial facility, it could get sold, or new uses could come in, that would again, so this is kind of built for that contingency. The second one is a requirement that we had agreed and discussed on, that if a sewer comes down and is available, regardless of whatever even if the flow remains as it is now, there would be a connection to the sewer. The rest is the way I think the decision would be enforceable, because we're doing it under our consolidated regulations, so just finding that it would be a violation of, we could treat violation of the regulation under the provisions of the regulations, making it clear that it's in the event that the system, that the facility, or that the property gets sold, it will be enforceable against a new owner. I think the one thing I'd want to add is that the board would request, would require a notification in writing if there was a transfer. And similarly, if there was a change in use that would add increased flow to the space, then a full system upgrade would be required. And then just kind of boilerplate that we're not limited to whatever necessarily our regs are set out specifically in our regs as far as enforcement, which is really the kind of penalty piece of it. So that's it. That's what's proposed.
Okay. So I'm going to open it up to the floor. Maybe we'll start with Mr. Rodrick's.
Thank you. This is pretty much what we went around on when we sat together, so well done. I like the numbers. I would have one comment that I believe the item D on your draft decision, you talked about pumping the tanks out quarterly. I was thinking, in my proposal, I had said that the tanks would be pumped out annually and inspections would be at 6-month intervals. I think the implication of D, or the wording therein of Phil, it does say quarterly.
I don't have what you did, but I thought I copied your letter.
I remember it as being annual as well, because
My item D says pump
maybe-
each of the two separate tanks
Okay.
out in increments not to exceed
Okay,
12 months.
so
So I
Matt-
think every year, but we were inspecting at 6-month increments is what I was proposing.
Okay, so Matt should speak to that because he modified that.
So annually, so I guess clarification, so you're saying that the inspection points if the inspector feels they need to be pumped, they would be pumped?
Correct. And that would be a condition of the inspection.
Okay, then I think we just need to expand on that pumping annually language that he proposed in his first draft to clarify that
So
if the pumping is needed sooner.
pump each of the
it's
two,
done.
Well, you need to
Septic-
have that or sooner, so, yeah.
not to exceed 12 months on or, right now it says pump each, here's my suggestion, pump each of the 2 septic tanks at increments not to exceed 12 months, commencing on or sooner if determined by the Title V inspector. Something like that, is
Yes,
that?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine, I can add that in.
Because he's inspecting every 6 months. Is that
So
okay, Phil?
if.
Yeah, sure, yeah, yeah, I
If
mean,
during a
I was,
6-month inspection, the scum layer, or the residuals that are unacceptable, the inspection of the 6-month could say, pump the tank out.
Pump it in
But
2
if
weeks,
not, it would be an annual pump
right.
every year.
Right, because the second inspection happens annually, so it'd be
Right.
12 months, yeah, at the 12-month mark.
Okay,
And that would be the only comment I have on the draft decision. It's pretty much coincident with
Okay.
how we were converging in our prior discussions.
Phew.
So I'm comfortable with that.
okay, there is one, just, I'll give you a grammatical thing later, but,
yeah.
Okay,
And I'll just
so-
give you and Jay should talk about that the board will receive notification of the transfer.
oh, yeah. Transfer of ownership, right,
Yeah.
okay. Okay,
So, and if I
No, okay,
could-
transfer of ownership.
And if I could give the board an update, we had talked about schedule. I do know that the effluent pump has been ordered and will probably be installed by midweek of this week. The effluent filter T, the commercial one, which is not common on the shelves, has also been ordered, and that too should happen midweek of this week.
Mm-hmm.
And the jet washing of the system was agreed to yesterday or over the weekend, and that process is commencing as early as tonight or tomorrow to do the pre-treatment to ready it for the jet washing. So that will be done in the month of August. So that is how it, I'm not doing it, but that is what we currently have in the works in terms of updating the board
Okay.
to try to get all this
squared
clear.
away.
Great,
And I think it's also coincident with your letter, so we're all good. Thank you.
good.
Okay, thank you for that update. Let me turn to
Yeah,
board
I mean,
members. Any
I-
other questions?
Just for Matt, and I brought it up when I met with him a little bit earlier, is the, not necessarily the burden on the staff, but how to manage, because there's so many criteria for this system to be completed the way it's been described. So, keeping up on it, how are you planning on organizing and keeping on top of this?
So
We're
with
gonna rely on
the,
Mr. Rodricks.
so what I would, March is outlining what's happening, so we can, the people can get in there in early September. So Mark will provide me documentation or some kind of confirmation that this has all been done. I'll look it over, if it looks good, then it'll go in the file, and that checkbox gets done, and then that satisfies A through C maybe.
Yes.
And then as far as now the water meter readings, once they come in, I'm not sure what the mechanism, how you're gonna get them to me. If you're gonna mail them to me, drop them off, email them to me, but I'll look at them, make sure everything is where it should be, put it in the file, and if everything's good, there'll be no action needed. Only if something comes in over what we discussed in this draft here, if something exceeds the 1784, if it comes back at 1800, well, the Mark will be notified. I'll send them an email or a letter saying, you've exceeded, and we'll get together and discuss it, try to figure out what's going on. I mean, it's if there was 10 of these going on, it'd be pretty time consuming, but this should be, it's easily organized and should be handled fine. There's nothing really on the staff that they would need to do. So it just kind of falls on me to monitor this, and,
He's got big shoulders.
yeah.
I believe, if I may, Matt, I believe you will right now be getting a inspection report every 6 months.
Mhm.
That will come to your office, that will be part of the normal inspection process.
Mhm.
The well water usage, the metered well water usage is a data point that is collected on a monthly basis throughout the year. That is being done now because it's a public water supply well. So there's a vendor servicing the well water supply system that collects that data on a monthly basis. That is an annual report that is coming to, that goes to the state.
Mhm.
That'll also, a copy is generated and sent here as well for your records now. That'll continue to happen. And what I can work is having the service provider for the well provide you, even a simple email, I think is adequate, just to send the well water usage in October was this many gallons, November, and so on. So
Yeah,
that-
Mike,
and
is it
that would
Mike?
be- Mike.
Yeah,
that's
he has
Mike.
my email, like,
Yes.
he came on a different project, so
Yes,
he could just email me the monthly readings.
you know, and I think that would, it would ease the pain. It shouldn't be that much of a burden on Matt if that data is presented to him, and he can just review it and file it,
Yeah.
or respond, depending.
I would like to suggest, this is something that we put on the agenda regularly so we can kind of monitor as a board, because have we ever done anything like this before?
Kind of, sort of, before I started, there was an agreement in place for Weatherall Farms
Yeah,
for this type of, similar, I guess.
yeah, it wasn't, yeah, that was a bit of a torturous thing that happened, but they were it was part of putting in a new system and in, regulating the capacity of the system, so there was, and I can't remember what it was, but it was, you know, that is the, how a balance was struck with the, looking at the capacity of the system based on what was really kind of actual use versus pure design capacity. And I think, you know, it had to do with events, you know, so if you looked at, if you said this was gonna be a wedding venue and you had weddings every weekend, you had one design flow. If you say, well, we only have weddings once every 2 months, it becomes kind of a different thing. And I think that it just got worked out that way. But I think this is also just kind of, and we talked a little bit about this, and I think there's another case that's coming up, is the fact that, you know, in these mall situations, businesses are moving in and out.
Yeah.
And we, you know, our regulation would require people to let us know, but no one's knocking on our door and saying, oh, by the way, what used to be an office is now a pizza place, or whatever it would be. And it would, I think this is a template of how we could, you know, deal with that. But it
Do you see any merit in
requires
that?
someone stepping forward and saying, yeah, this is what's going on.
Do you see any merit in having a regular report about, because this is something that I haven't been involved in a system like this, and this, it's not a contract, but it just seems like it would be something that would also be of interest to see how these kinds of systems are working.
So let me suggest that we can just add, like, as under our other business, like we have board member updates, we have like project updates, and then Matt can, you know, he's gotten water meter readings on this project that are of concern. You know, it's a trigger, but it doesn't have to be specific.
Okay.
So that would be one way of making sure the board stays kind of in the loop. And
Sure
it's a
thing.
trigger.
And a trigger would be, he's gonna get a 6-month report
Right.
on the inspection, which will include 6 monthly readings of water. So that might be a time to pass it through the board for your information, which should be easy for you. I got that report, maybe I'll just, you know, report to the board on how things are going.
There was just one other interesting, I was just saying, one other kind of or illuminating to me reminder that came up, because there is a provision in Title V where an applicant is proposing a unique, a unique use, or one for which no design capacity has been established under the regulations, and that request actually goes directly to DEP for them to figure out the design capacity. But the reason I'm mentioning it is that, and the regulation says that, is that, in particular, it's based on actual flow, water flow. Like if you want to come in, Title V doesn't generally allow you to base use on actual water flow.
Right.
And so there's this process. The reason I'm mentioning it relative to the numbers here, is that design, that this section in Title V says when DEP establishes design flow capacity, it will be 200% of the actual flow. So they build into the design capacity actually twice as much as the actual flow. So there is this whole margin of safety built into the design capacities.
Thank you.
So I think we should feel relatively comfortable, but also we'll be getting the real deal.
Right. And as we did get updates from Barnstable County on total nitrogen testing and stuff like that, so there's various, if you call, let's call them project updates that we can just put under this category, and this could be one of them. So, okay. Then I will, I think we've outlined some minor changes to Section D to clarify the frequency of tank pumping, to Section J, that the Board of Health will receive notice of any transfer of ownership, and there's a minor typo we'll fix, but otherwise, as presented, with those modifications, I would accept the motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
A motion made and seconded to approve the decision for change of use at 875 State Road with the conditions outlined in the document. All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Just administratively, is this something that Matt would sign? Or would we come back to the board to sign?
I think it could be,
I could sign on if you want to on the behalf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I could sign just as me,
Yeah.
so, however you want.
part of the motion will be on, that we'll direct Matt to sign on behalf of the
Yeah.
board. So we can move that forward,
Yeah.
because we're all in agreement here.
I'll
We
have it
don't-
ready tomorrow for you.
Take good.
Yeah, maybe we could get, like an acknowledgement of receipt from the owner of the decision.
Okay?
I can do that too.
Okay,
I
good,
can make
that'd be
that
helpful.
And I'll get back to you on the completion of all of our steps A, B, C, that they're done, and then Matt will be looking to the Board of Health and yourself to sign off on the occupancy, and the daycare is critical path. I met with my cousin this morning. The owner's property.
Okay,
Critical path.
yep. We're- Kids need to be in daycare.
He made it clear.
Okay, well, we're on track. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
That's fine.
We got there. We all learned about this one, by the way.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
For a lot of us here.
Yeah. Thank you, thank you, good night. Okay, I'm gonna return back to our other business items. So item number 4, this is a rework of something, a document we've talked about before, trying to, as I sort of alluded to in the amendment to the regulations, trying to clarify and sort of format it. Any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? Phil has some.
I have some, yeah, so
Notes.
I just have some small notes. So I was, and this partly has to do with kind of the audience that this goes to, but also the challenge in kind of threading this needle on how much we want to say and how much clarity we want, because, so as I read now, all new construction, you know, an increase in flow, and so I don't, and like you would think, so when I read this, if I was uneducated necessarily, or only mildly educated reader, I would think that there's new construction and then there's increase in flow, whereas we all know that increase in flow actually is new construction. Do you know what I mean? So and then I know that in the second bullet, you know, that we're going down to, it is not required for a standard cesspool upgrade. And I don't know what that means. That is, I think legitimate, I understand that you're not trying to get into maximum feasible compliance here. And I do understand that, but I just don't know, because if I was an engineer reading this, and because you have capitalized and underlined not, it is not required for a standard cesspool upgrade, and someone came in and said, and fit the parameters, that we would say, okay, well, maximum feasible compliance under our policy says you have to put one in, and he'd be saying, well, look, this says, I consider, because what they think they're doing is standard, so I just didn't know how to, I don't know what the right answer is, I just have some anxiety about that.
Well, what I was trying to address is that we have certain people in town who are saying, based on our regulation, oh, you have to upgrade your cesspool, you have to go to D-Night.
Right.
That is patently false.
Right,
And I'm trying to, in a simple way, saying, for a
right.
standard, I don't know what the other word, another word
Well,
is.
yeah,
but,
right. That's why I was saying, it really depends on who the audience is that we're trying to. So I'm not going to say it's wrong about it. It was, but anyway, that was my.
So I think it is
I'm not
important
sure-
to say, because we have to counter these scare
Mm-hmm.
arguments, tactics that are floating around out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear what you're saying, that this may not be precise enough, and so we'll rethink how to.
I didn't try to come up with the language because I thought maybe you got, you know, it didn't matter that much.
Well, I don't
yeah.
want you to be anxious, so
Well,
we're trying
yeah,
to
right.
reduce the anxiety for homeowners as well, who are getting mixed or confusing messages.
Right.
And so, we'll revisit that, okay?
Right.
Sure.
I mean, maybe the thing to say is, you know, our septic regulations
Mhm.
do not require cesspool denitrification for cesspool upgrades.
Okay,
And maybe that's just
way to clarify.
a
that.
way to
Okay.
clarify that.
Sure.
And then if we get these unique cases, we're be able to say, well, you know, we weren't trying to write a treatise on
Yeah,
our policy here, we were just trying to draw that distinction.
okay, well, we'll
Okay,
work on that. Yep.
And then, well, this is a really minor thing here. Maybe it's grammatical or maybe it's word choice. It's in the important note, where the last phrase says, although it is encouraged to I think it should read evaluate, not evaluate.
Oh, yep.
But then I thought maybe monitor was another word you could use if you
Okay.
weren't happy with it.
Sure.
And then in the first sentence under the upgrade repair,
Mhm.
I wondered if, where you have formal, has not formally approved,
Mhm.
and then later on, and then you use the word specifically, and maybe if you just put, maybe if it just read DEP has not specifically approved any technology for nitrogen recredit under remedial use approval, it would just be cleaner,
Okay,
because I'm not, and then, this sounds so silly to go through, but I just wondered that capitalizing nitrogen reducing technology, I don't know, because you
Okay.
use it a bunch of times without,
Okay.
And then last thing I had was Westport, shall we use it? Oh, so I didn't think in the Westport Board of Health will accept the following remedial use approvals. I thought, I'm not sure what the for was, for when, I think it should be approvals when nitrogen.
reduction is required?
Yeah.
When we're in a remedial situation,
Yeah,
um,
so I think it reads, so I think it just read cleaner, Westport, we will accept the remedial use approvals when nitrogen reduction is required,
okay.
rather than for when nitrogen reduction is,
Okay,
that was
okay,
what I
okay.
meant. And then okay. And then I wrote this note afterward, or desired, which I think meant, so if someone, maybe remedial use approvals are only put in not voluntarily. Like, it's remedial, we will accept the following remedial use approvals when nitrogen reduction is required.
Well, here's an example that we had the one tonight, at Tickle Road, was, although if they'd come before us with those total nitrogen levels, we would have said, you have to do D9. And he came in,
Right,
so he preempted our requirement.
right,
But that,
right,
it's
right.
not, it's
Yeah.
not, because that's what we would think would be maximum feasible compliance, right? So,
I just didn't know whether there were, because you guys know
how about
more
we
of the
just say for
situation.
nitrogen reduction, and then we don't get into
Yeah,
the.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Avoid that,
yeah, that's it.
okay. Donna, any concerns? Okay. The goal of this is really, I think our target audience is primarily the engineers, but we had committed to doing an info session when we met with the Realtor, Nicole Plant, sometime in the fall. And I think the Infrastructure Oversight Committee might be doing something, there's opportunities for us to clarify. And some of the clarifications that we agreed upon through this process are ones where I was trying to also clarify in the regulation to be
Right.
100%
Yeah, that's good.
consistent. So this is all coming together, and hopefully we can have a final version by the next meeting. All right, that would be it for that agenda item. Then we go on to board member updates.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
It's not within that, it's sort of out of order here, but on the Tickle Road water results we just got back, will you be sending letters to everybody about their water and not
In
drinking?
Chatwell, she does that, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, that's a trigger automatically.
okay, I just
So
want to
she knows to do
make
that. yeah.
sure.
Yep.
Mhm.
It's good
Okay.
to ask, though. Okay, Phil, any updates?
Yeah,
You
so.
mentioned septic tax credit. Any news?
Oh, I haven't heard anything about the septic tax credit. But we were, I think you did, and then I followed up with Mary Beth at DEP about the availability of the 0% community septic loan.
Mm-hmm.
And so she indicated two things, which was one that that this is a new program, the 0%, but the application requires the vote for acceptance of the town. So if we wanted to do this, we could, and it's complicated because we have an outstanding loan at 2%, which you're charging 5% for, that, although 5% sounds good these days, but, so we would need to talk through and then think through whether, in addition to our proposal to convert the denitrification low income to a straightforward low income, you know, whether or not we would consider requesting funding for a 0% loan next, and, you know, which, as a practical matter, might be in 2025
Right.
before the money came through. But then I was thinking, well, you know, can we basically, if that was, how do I put this? Can we return the bond money that we borrowed at 2% and then just start fresh with the 0% loan?
I would not recommend that approach because the 5% loan has no income constraints. So there's still people who might
Right,
want to use it,
right,
who would not be eligible for the low to moderate income.
right.
So, but I think the argument we could make to Sue Brayton and the select board is, this is a 0% loan. So it's not, I mean, maybe, I don't know if it affects our
Well, I
bond
think-
rating or something.
Right. I'm
but-
not, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
But it wouldn't have any financial impact on the town, because we're not paying interest. So, and we would collect, as we do with the current betterment program, you know, as loans get paid off, we pay it down. But we'd have to see how the town fathers would think about it. There's so many other financial issues
Yeah.
in town that they
Yeah.
may say, we can't deal with this.
Right, right. And well, I don't even know enough to say whether or not the community that the arrangement that DEP has made is that we're going to, like, do you just get a single 0% loan package, or is there, as we have tried to have, some flexibility within the loan package, so that the same amount of bond money, some portion of it could be, like, if you're committing to say, okay, you will give 0% loans, but they're only, out of this total amount of money you get, only, you can give 0% loans, but they're only for low-income people, but for, out of the same bond allocation, you can, for people who are above the income threshold, you know, you can, well, in both cases, we can set the interest any way we want, right? I mean, there's nothing
Well, the
mandating us to
treasurer
charge
says, yeah.
5, it's just that that's the way, it's because we're paying 2%, you know, that we're,
The treasurer
anyway,
makes
I
the-
just thought, we have plenty of time to look into this stuff, so I just thought I'd try to get a better idea of how this new version of the community septic
Yeah,
program worked.
my inclination is that trying to combine 2 interest rates and 2 eligibilities within one bond is probably not,
Yeah,
would not be favorably
right, but,
reviewed by the town.
right,
But we already have one pool,
yeah,
let's leave that alone, and we
Yeah.
don't have to ask for 500,000, maybe we only ask for 200,000.
well,
all we
that's what
need,
I
or
was just gonna
whatever.
say, I mean, it could be set up so that we could break it out and say, in the past, we combined everything together,
Yeah.
but we're just gonna ask for a small amount of bond capacity for just a 0% loan program,
Right.
you know,
But we don't know.
which could supplement our kind of revolving fund loan,
Right,
because there's not a lot of money in that.
that's, about 140,000, I think, was it?
Yeah.
And I did look up the annual town meeting, it was FY '21 for that article, And all I believe we would have to do, and we'd have to have legal counsel review it, is just amend that article to eliminate the words "with qualified nitrogen reducing
Right.
systems." So it's very straightforward.
Right.
That article does not talk about low to moderate income, but that was a
No.
commitment we made
Right,
to sue
right,
the town treasurer
Right,
in
right.
order to
yeah.
implement that, and we would continue to abide by that. I wouldn't suggest adding any language. 'cause
No,
that
yeah,
would just-
yeah. Anyway, so,
So, okay.
yeah.
Well, would you be willing to continue to research that?
Yeah, so I will
Okay.
keep looking into it, but there's time.
Yes, there's time on that. Great. Thanks for following up with DEP on that. Okay, anything else?
No.
Donna?
I should have the shorelines column for you guys to review in a day or two. And a reminder of Team Cow on September 24th to clean our Westport for people to sign up.
Saturday's the 23rd.
Is it the 23rd? 23rd, I'm sorry. Thank you. I wrote down the 24th. And what else? Nothing. I can't think of anything else.
Great, okay. The first meeting of the short-term rental committee is later this week? Yes, later this week. And I'll report back. I don't have any further updates on that.
I just had a question whether or not, in light of the decision by town council that our current zoning regulations do not allow short-term rentals, is the building department, is there any motivation on the building department, if you know, to handle complaints or to do something about that?
I
In
do
the
not
interim?
know
Okay.
about that. I do know that there is a database that indicates we have about 170
Mm-hmm,
short-term rentals, hotels, motels, and bed and breakfasts in town
yeah,
that are already registered with the state. So it's a big
yeah,
number. So
Yeah.
that is something that the committee will have to wrestle with in terms of enforcement and all the things. I
Okay,
mean, what it's
yeah.
trying to do is legitimize that usage under certain constraints.
Right,
Because right now,
right.
there's no
yeah.
Wild West,
yeah,
as we know, of the complaints that we've received. So
Yeah,
I believe, and it's triggered by the Spinnaker Way one, which was referred to the building inspector, and he did do a cease and desist. But I think they're complaining that, why were they singled out when there's 159 other ones?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
anyways, so that's more to be reported on.
Do you know how many people are signed up for that committee or on that committee?
5
Okay.
have been appointed. 2 zoning board, 2 planning board, and 1 board of health member. And staff from the planning board.
And I think that, I don't know if we'll be having another, there are certainly meetings that are being held for the Climate Resiliency Committee.
Oh, right.
I think because of the summer and some scheduling, I know that the Water Committee is gonna have a meeting, but they've had to change the meeting several times.
Mm.
And with the health meeting, we haven't met,
right, because.
but we addressed heat as a major problem early on, and certainly that's rearing its
Yeah.
ugly head here this year with all the places with
Yeah.
soaring
I think the water
temperatures.
committee is the third week of September, I can't remember, maybe it's like the 25th now, I think, again. But, yeah, but they're still working through the draft document, so.
Well, thanks, both of you, for your work on that. All right, anything else? If not,
Can't think, okay, so I move that we adjourn this meeting at 5:35 PM.
Second.
all in favor? Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone.